Welcome to the show, The Real Story Behind Our Business with Jen Rafferty. Did I say it
Hello.
right?
Yes. Hello. So good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, as usual, if you don't know the show yet, the real story behind our business came from the fact that, and maybe you don't know that, Jen, I don't know. I used to be a TV reporter and I miss interviewing people. So, back in January 2020, when everybody had their creativity back because of the things, uh, I decided why I should create my own show because that's what you do, and I know that's part of your story today. Is like you created your own message and you choose your platform. So for me, it's the podcast and then that show. And I'm not going to say too much because I want you to share the beautiful story that is happening right now to you live from 2022. So Jen, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Can you tell us before we start to the juiciness of that interview? Who do you serve in this world, and where do you talk to us from?
Well, I serve teachers and school leaders to talk about their social emotional well-being and really focus on how we elevate the social emotional well-being of the adults in schools. Everybody wins. So I serve people through a variety of platforms, including Facebook. I have a beautiful Facebook community there. I have a great, beautiful online following on Instagram and now on TikTok, which is really cool. I'm expanding over there. But I also do a lot of in-person and live events now too.
Yeah. Okay. So where are you talking from? Did you say it and I missed
I,
it?
I didn't know. I'm in Central New York right now.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Okay. So tell me, the first question I love to ask is the little Jen Rafferty when she was 5, 7. What was she doing every day if she was not at school? What was your thing that really shaped who she became today?
Oh, I love this question. Well, little Jen was singing and performing all the time, every day. I grew up in theater. I grew up on stage. The story goes, I was performing for my stuffed animals as soon as I could talk. I was singing. As soon as I could walk, I was dancing, and I was always performing and putting on shows. I felt very at home on stage. So when I wasn't in school, I was literally at rehearsal. Usually until late at night. My parents were amazing, driving me back and forth from dance studio to theater class to voice lessons. When I was a little bit older, I didn't start voice lessons until I was about 10. And that's where I found my people. I found my home. My home was very much on stage, sharing music and sharing art and theater.
I love this question always because it's always like you had no idea at the time and how it just when you follow the thread and then boom 2022 and you still actually from what I see on solo you still play the music and stuff, right? Do you?
Oh yes, I was a music teacher for most of my career, and I genuinely thought I was going to be doing that for my whole entire life. And it wasn't until things really shifted during the pandemic that I pivoted into where I am right now. But music, I mean, my piano's here, my guitar's over here. I have my ukuleles over there, my drums over there. Music is still very much a part of my life for sure.
So before we get into the business aspect, like from teacher to entrepreneur, um, what was the most burning desire at the time for you before even you started your business, but you felt that fire in you? Can you bring us back there and how it felt that you knew it was a signal?
Yes. So when I first started teaching, I went to school for music education and vocal performance. I was really good at it. I got straight A's. My teachers were, Jen, that you were meant for this. This is your calling. And I truly felt that. I said that many places, teaching felt like a calling for me. Like it chose me. And when I got to my first classroom, I felt so unprepared, and I was really mad about it because here I was, like I did everything right. I did everything that everyone told me what I was supposed to do. And I walked into my very first day of my class feeling just, I didn't know who my students were. I was really prepared with all of my content and the way I was going to teach the kids and my big, beautiful philosophy as to why music and where, music for everybody kind of thing. So I was so idealistic, and I was really, it felt like I was just thrown into the deep end, and I was angry about it. And so on my own, I started doing a lot of research about brain development, actually, because I thought if I could understand who my kids were a little bit more, because I especially worked with middle school kids, adolescents, they have like a whole other kind of
A whole
need.
brain of their own.
They do. And so I was like, well, if I could understand where they were coming from a little bit more, I could teach them better. So my story regarding research and curiosity was really important in the longevity of my story. And look, I'm not knocking my undergrad experience. I had a great undergrad experience where I went to college, and they did teach me how to ask really good questions. So I just kind of followed some breadcrumbs, and it led me down different rabbit holes. And so my deep inner desire, like that fire that I felt, came out of a responsibility that a strong responsibility that I felt to give back to my profession. Like, here I came across something that was a problem. I found something that was a solution for me. And in order to move my profession forward, I felt almost like a civic duty to share it. So as soon as I could, I started presenting at conferences. I think I was 24. I went to my first conference, I think when I was 23, and I looked around and I was like, I have something to say. I totally have something to say. And so I had applied to speak at the next year's conference about my story, started writing for different publications and different, blogs weren't really a thing back then, but when they became available, blogs and other pieces in other places. And all of a sudden I started becoming really comfortable telling my story because I knew that I was the only person who could tell it.
Wow. That's, if that's not a mission, what it is. Wow. I love how you share it. And can we go back to the anger thing?
Yeah.
Just tell me
Yeah.
more about this. I just love because you kind of demystify that it's okay to be angry, and that thanks to that feeling, then you went further in your journey.
Yeah. In telling my story in different places, kind of like these conversations right now, especially recently, I've discovered that I've used that word anger several times in those pivotal moments, which has been so interesting to me too. So I'm glad that you kind of caught that, because that has been a place where I've been unpacking some things. And I think can I curse on here? Can I say
Yeah, I think unless they cut us, but it's okay.
I was
We'll
I
be
was in a therapy session years ago, and I was explaining that I was angry about something, and she said to me, Jen, anger gets shit done. And I was like, huh, okay. And now that I've done a lot of the emotional work and I understand the purpose of finding different motivations for different things, I think that anger, when you really acknowledge it as a communication of some sort, and you look at it, you feel through the feelings, but then you look at it like, huh, okay, what was this anger about? That could sometimes be a catalyst for something positive. And so I didn't understand that until much later. So this is me in retrospect saying, I was angry and this is what I did. I didn't fully understand it at the time. I was just sitting in my anger.
Yeah,
Doing something about it, but I was sitting in it for a little while.
yeah. Okay, I just love it. Thank you for going a little deeper on that. So,
Yeah, sure.
from there, you start talking about the things you believe in, you stand for, and then you want to make it a business. So, how did you go from that? Sharing a message based on what you saw and you wanted to share with the world, to, oh, I'm gonna monetize my message.
Mm.
How did you go to about that?
Yeah, so that was definitely a very big, scary leap for me. Coming from the world of education, it wasn't just that it was something that I was good at and comfortable with, but it was also very reliable. You could throw a dart at a calendar 10 years from where I was. And I could probably tell you with good measure where I was going to be and how I was going to, how much I was going to get paid and what my schedule was going to be like and, how my days were going to go. And that comfort was something that I actually needed at that time in my life. Now, when the pandemic happened, I was also I had we'll back up a little bit. In December 2019, I had published my book. 2 weeks later, I had decided, and my husband at the time decided we were going to get a divorce. And I moved out of my house the same weekend the world shut down. So here I was now in a new place with my 2 children who were 5 and 7 at the time, now having to figure out how to homeschool them, how to teach music online, and navigate this new life that I had. And I tell this part of the story because this was an important piece of the identity that came after. Everything that happened prior to that day, I was something, then that day happened, and then I was like something different. And I really needed to grieve that old self, that old identity of who I used to be. But then I was able to find it to be an opportunity for me to construct the person who I wanted to be. And so that process happened really slowly, a lot of crying. But one of the things that actually happened was I stayed home with my 2 kids that next school year to do homeschool, what I thought was just going to be a semester. I started my PhD in educational psychology. That was always something that I wanted to do. And the very first assignment for my first professor, it was introduce yourself. And so everybody was introducing themselves by the way they were related to their children, in relation to their spouse, or their relation to their job. And while I was a mom and I love being a mom, I didn't want to lead with that. And I was just like, I don't know who I am. Who am I? And I had this moment of realizing I needed to figure that out. So I started leveraging some of the information that I was getting through my PhD program. Other work that I did, I got a certification in emotional intelligence and my brain research of cognitive development that I've been doing my whole entire career. And because everything was virtual, I just started putting out some workshops and was like, hey, you want to learn some stuff that's kind of cool? And what I started to realize was that there was a need for something bigger than what I was able to provide in the classroom. And that was the message of Empowered Educator. And if I really wanted to get that message out into the world, I couldn't do that and teach. So the transition from teacher to educator, which I'm still am a teacher and an educator, by the way, that is something that continues. But that transition of my identity to entrepreneur, educator, and entrepreneur, and author, and all the things that you see like floating down the bottom on the screen, right? I felt this crazy pull, like I had to come out about being an entrepreneur. And I was terrified about what people were going to think about me. Here I was, at the top of my game. I was conducting all, choirs across New York State. I was traveling to do conferences at a national level. And now all of a sudden I published this book about teaching, and fast forward, and now I'm not going to teach anymore. I was terrified about owning that piece of who I was becoming. And then one day I just did. And to my incredible just relief almost, everyone was just like, so glad you're happy, Jen. Can't wait for you to change the world. We're so behind you. How can we help? And that transition was pivotal for me to own who I was becoming now as an educator in this entrepreneurial space, to really share a message that so many people need, which has been evident since the TED Talk, especially.
Yeah. 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 Do you remember the first time you said, I am an entrepreneur?
That's funny. I don't, but it was definitely later than I wanted it to be. And I'm sure I did a whole Facebook post about it because it needed to be, here it is. We'll put a pin in that. I'll get back to you, but I'm sure it was, probably the fall of 2021, which was significantly later than when I actually started my business.
Yeah, interesting. So yeah, tell us more now, because so you told us, what you wanted to accomplish, and then so it's moving forward at a cadence that is amazing, and then bam, you're on its stage a few weeks ago, and then the impact is like huge. So
Mhm.
before we go there, tell us what happened a few weeks ago, Jen.
Yeah, sure. Well, I gave a TEDx talk 2 weeks ago at the stage on Ithaca College on the Ithaca College campus, and the talk was called "Generational Change Begins with Empowered Teachers." And this message of empowered educator, which is what my whole program and my whole company is based on, is really that the fundamental principle is about the most generous thing you can do for your students is take care of yourself, which is a radical idea in education. And I am so grateful that I was able to stand on that stage and share the message. And now I am overwhelmed by the impact that's just happened just in 2 short little teeny tiny weeks. So
Yeah, you're going to the million, like you 500,000 everywhere, like Instagram and then TikTok. This
yeah.
is just, this is what happens when you're right on. I guess you are serving a gap.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it goes back to what I was saying before, with my undergrad program, especially, I was taught how to ask good questions. And in asking those questions, I was able to find several gaps throughout my career. And so when it came time to decide, okay, do I want to do this full time? It's actually really interesting. I didn't even think this would be possible until one day, I was talking with a friend, and he had just said to me, just off, he had owned his own business, and he just said, well, I like to build things. And it occurred to me, like, I like to build things. I can build things. I've built really successful things. And by building things, for me as a teacher, I built program, I built opportunity, I built community school relationships, I built, new initiatives, like all of these things were really, and so I was able to look back on my career with a totally different set of lenses. To find the evidence that this is something that not only could I do, I could do it really well. And if I really wanted to build this new thing, it's totally capable of doing it. So, and then of course I did the thing and then got scared and cried about it afterwards too, because it got, you do the thing and you're like, oh no, what did I just do? That's a whole nother process we could get into if you want to, or talk about another time.
I love it. So, Jenny, if you remember the first big payoff for you, it doesn't have to be financial. It could be anything. When you go through all those motions and emotions, and then the first time you look back after realizing that you are an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
what was it? What was the time of the moment, the day, the week, or the event that happened that you're like, oh, this is why I do that?
Um, I think there were two things. I think the first one was when I first sent out my program into the world. Like, it wasn't even a program. It was like an idea. It was tenets. It was, these are the 8 tenets of what it means to be an empowered educator, and here are the workshops that kind of go along with this. And the responses that I got from these teachers, from these districts, from these, regional teacher centers was like, yes, this is exactly the thing that we've been waiting for. We need this. And so that was kind of like, it just like, boop, and it like locked in for me. Like, okay, so not only do I have this thing, but there's also, I was spot on with what people needed. And I think I like you said, I found that gap. And that was the first thing. And then the second thing, it was like the very first time I ever did a program, there were 4 people on there. I'm still in touch with all 4 of them. And I have seen their growth over the last, not even 2 years that they've embodied these ideas and implemented the strategies that they've been taught and been working with. And so seeing those ripple effects, there is no greater feeling for a teacher. Forget entrepreneurship. As a teacher, Henry Adams, my favorite quote about being a teacher, you never know where your influence stops. And so I now see what I do is just planting. I just plant seeds. I will never see the fruit of any of that. And if I'm lucky, I might see a little sprout here and there. But yeah, that's how I view what I do now because of those moments.
Beautiful. Love it. I love it. I'm like looking at the lens and listening because you're here when I look at you, but I try to always look at the lens, but I'm very focused on what you say. So that's why I look like, because I'm listening.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
I just love what you say. Okay. So that's Jen's journey. Before I want to wrap up with a few more questions, but before we go too far, where can people see your your TED Talk?
Oh, well, it's pinned on TikTok and Instagram. My handle is at Jen Rafferty _. That's the easiest way to see that. Then the TED Talk itself is going to be on my website, but it's still so new. So right now it's just that little clip that went viral.
Yeah.
That's on those pages. But the full TED Talk will be on my website.
Yeah. And I love that yellow jacket you have on the stage. I don't know why.
Thank you.
I loved it. It was perfect.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And okay, so you've been an entrepreneur, like an official in your own words for almost 2 years, right? Is that correct to say that?
About a year and a half. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So through that entrepreneurial journey that you started even before having your journey, without knowing that you were a creator, to be an entrepreneur is to be able to create out of nothing something. That's that's how I see it, at least. How did your perception of money changed?
Yes. So being a teacher, coming from a place where there's lots of scarcity and lack around money, it was really difficult for me to get out of the idea of money and time being connected as a measure for productivity. There was all sorts of stuff around that. I mean, as a teacher, you're lucky if you have time to pee. And so there's a lot of worthiness stuff that's wrapped in. I mean, it's like that chord at the beginning before. I actually don't think it's on this recording, but the chord that you pulled up with all of your I don't know if you still have like your chords that you were.
Oh, okay. I'm like, what chord? What
yeah,
chord?
like those chords. you had all these chords. It was like that messed up kind of like swishy thing of before we started.
Yeah.
Right, of like worthiness and value and time and money. And from the response and the comments that I get, especially around teachers about the things that are stressful for them, money is always top 3, right? And so moving into this entrepreneurial space, understanding that I don't have that reliable income anymore that I did when I was teaching, and I had to create a new schedule and time and flexibility and all of the things that I wanted to incorporate as I built my business. I had to do a lot of mindset work around that. And now I've come to the point where money is not about me or my worth or anything like that. The amount of money that comes into my business is directly related to the impact that I have in this world, because all of that, goes into making the impact bigger, whether it's hiring team to help with marketing to get the messages out there differently, whether it's another person to do the back end work to make that more efficient so I can be in front of more people more often. If that is a way, the impact regarding creating an international platform for empowered educator, the expenses that go along with that. Money isn't tangled up in time and worth and worthiness and value of me. It really, I've had to shift that a lot, and now I look at it as impact.
Wow, I think there's another TED Talk here. You're so good. Oh my God. That was
Mm.
so beautiful. Oh, thank
Thanks.
you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a lot of work getting here. I've been, I joke like I've been training for this, but it is everything that I teach and share and talk about are practices that I do myself all of the time. This becoming process, whatever that means for you, isn't isn't a smooth ride. It is scary, and it is sad, and there's anger, and there's grief, and there's joy and excitement, and then there's hesitation, and then there's work. I mean, it's all of it. And so the more that you can focus on yourself, that introspective work has just been essential. I was just talking with somebody else who was sharing with me, hey, I really want to get started in this, coaching space, this strategy or what works for you or this or this. And I looked at her, as I'm sipping my coffee, and I was like, girl, you need to go get yourself a mindset coach. Like,
That's so
it
true.
doesn't matter about
This
any,
is where it starts. I
yeah,
agree.
it doesn't matter, do whatever you want for strategy, but at the end of the day, if you want to make the impact that you say that you want to make, and it doesn't matter what you do, teachers also, like, this is literally the same thing that I teach. You need to get out of your own way, and the only way to do that is to have someone else reflect that to you and make sure that person knows what they're doing. But it's that introspective mindset work that makes everything else work, no matter what you do.
Can we do a high five? How do we do
Yes,
that?
high
Yeah.
five. Definitely, yes.
Oh wow, that's so cool. Okay, well, that's going with, right now, what would you say are your biggest fears, Jen, as an entrepreneur?
Oh, my biggest fears. My biggest fears right now is that, I don't even want to call them fears, because you and I have been trained in the same mindset work. And so calling them fears abdicates my power to them, and I don't want to do that. And so I'm gonna rephrase your question if that's
Do it.
okay.
Go for it.
The thing that's on top of mind right now is to acclimate to this level of visibility all of a sudden. The TED Talk was incredible, and it's like I said, it's not even out yet. Like, it was just like these little clips that are available, and it has exploded because people are looking at me and saying, thank you for seeing me, thank you for hearing me, thank you for being this voice. Yes, 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 yes. And in other places, it sparked some other really interesting conversations too. And so I want to acclimate and calibrate to this, so I can continue to be of highest service to everybody and not get in my head about what does it mean and how am I going to show up, and what if I do this, and what if I say this and I'm offending somebody. All of those noise, it's just noise. It's just noise. So I am really focusing my energy right now on that acclimation process, which comes with a lot of breathing, emotional releasing, which usually for me is in the form of crying, and being able to show up the way that I want to continue to elevate the conversation, to make the impact that I want to make.
Yeah. I just love your story, Jen. Thank you. And I love when the other day when you reach out to me, it's like, Angelique, the video is going viral. What do we do?
I do.
I was like, what do we do?
Yeah.
And it was
Okay.
exploding. I was watching it and it was like groan, groan, groan. It was just beautiful.
Thank
And I
you.
can understand where you at right now. It's like so amazing. It's so
Yeah.
amazing to see your impact. Yeah. And it's just the beginning. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're in the educational world, ladies or even men, if you're watching and you're like, really check out Jen. I'm gonna put your website, by the way. Boop,
Thank you.
here.
Yeah. And if you know a teacher, that's the thing. It's we all know everyone has to go to school.
Yep. And that's why I'm going to talk about you to I have two presentations to do about marketing at my son's school, and I'm going to mention you because
Well,
I'm sure everybody needs a Jen in their life.
right. I think so.
Yes. Okay. So, um, oh, where's my phone? We need to breathe. It's my breathing alarm.
Oh, breathing alarm. See,
Yes.
that's the chords I was talking about. I was referring to.
Yeah, that's too bad we don't have the recording of this.
Right.
Um, let's do. Do you want to guide us through the breathing?
Sure. Yeah. Well, when my breathing alarm goes off, I do the box breath. So that's
Let's
what
do this.
we'll do.
Yeah,
That's cool.
I'll
So
follow you.
great. We'll do 3 rounds of a box breath. So for those of you listening, it's in for 4, pause for 4, exhale for 4, pause for 4, and we'll do that 3 times. All right. So just exhale, let it all out, and in, 2, 3, 4, pause, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, pause, 2, 3, 4, in, 2, 3, 4, pause, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, pause, 2, last time, in, 2, 3, 4, pause, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, pause, 2, 3, 4.
Thank you.
This is
Okay.
also part of my routine every day.
I know. And it always goes off
Mhm.
during the show. And depending who I am with, I'm asking my guests because I know you do that. Otherwise, I relate it. But I love to be guided. Thank you.
Great. Oh, you're so welcome.
So, Jen, what is something you thought was true at the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey that was proven wrong to you?
Oh, something I thought was true that I don't believe is true anymore.
Yeah.
I will tell you that my ability and my capability was something that I questioned all along until recently. But again, that goes back to that inner work. Yes, and the moment to decide I'm going to do this thing, I've built things before, I had all this evidence. You're going into this uncharted territory, and so there are moments where you're like, am I capable of this? Am I capable of sustaining this? And hearing people who are well intended, who love me very much, who care about my well-being, be like, well, what about insurance, John? And like, how, okay, fine, you had a great couple months, but like, is this really sustainable? Or things like that are so easy to just feed the old scary narratives of this isn't for me. And again, coming from a place of education where everything was super consistent and reliable, into this roller coaster of a journey of entrepreneurship, those insecurities can sometimes get really loud. And so I no longer, even though I might not have thought, no, I don't think I'm capable of this. That thought never crossed my mind, but my level of capability certainly did. That voice is gone now.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're so inspiring. I hope everybody's going to take lots of notes, especially if you're watching the replay. It's going to be a podcast. I forgot to tell you that, Jen. After, we're going to make it on a podcast. Like, I'm going to use those interviews for the podcast. It's perfect to listen as you walk or, or with a journal because you are delivering so many nuggets. Gosh. Okay. 2 more questions.
Bring 'em.
What's your relationship with social media?
Oh, yeah. So I used to have a very complicated relation. It was complicated. I did. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand the purpose. I didn't understand how to use it as a vehicle. Now, especially since COVID, and I did some work. I worked with a branding specialist who really explained to me the value of it. I didn't understand it, so I didn't bother with it. But that was because I didn't understand the value. It didn't make any sense. And I needed someone to communicate that value to me in order for it to be used as a vehicle for my impacts. So now it's just, they are tools in my toolbox to deliver messages, right? If I have something to say, it doesn't matter if nobody's listening. And here's a way for the impact to be greater. And for me, in the work that I do, empower other educators to then share the message with other people. And so social media has the ability to do that. And of course, there's, the dark side of social media. And every once in a while, I'll catch myself scrolling and it's gotten to be, a little bit too long. And I am very careful about falling into those traps. But when I think about that as a tool, then it's like another employee that works for me.
Gosh, another high five. I love it. Okay. So on a day that is a beautiful day for you, whatever feels the best day, I always like to ask, what makes you having a good day? Like, is there certain things you do, or you be, or you are, or you have? I don't know. What is a good day? Like, what is it that you do or not that you're setting up yourself for a good day in your life?
Mm. So first of all, I love getting outside. I love to feel the sun on my skin. Anytime that I have an opportunity, I live in central New York. So right now we're like shifting into winter right now, which kind of makes me feel a little bit sad. But I still, the sun was out. It's going to be out for a little bit longer. So I'm going to head outside probably after this to get some of that vitamin D in my body. I meditate every morning. When I don't, I definitely feel the effects of that. And I was one, prior to doing this work, type A, busy brain. I didn't have time to do anything like that. Sit by myself with my thoughts for 5 minutes, forget it. Who has time for that's crazy. I didn't understand the value of that either. Now that I've been doing this for so long, I can't live without it. I feel it when I don't. Feed my body healthy foods, listen to my body. That's another piece of this also. If I need to get up and stretch, I get up and stretch. If I need to, have a drink of water or even just go to the bathroom, right? I mean, how long do you sit at your computer and you just like hold it? Because it's just go. Things like that, listening to my body is truly essential for me to feel connected. And then the other piece I think is that not just connection to my body, but connection to other people as well. I'm a very social person. So being an entrepreneur who works at home, I've had to find ways that are organic that I can connect with other people. So I FaceTime my fiance, I FaceTime my sister. I sometimes, if I don't have meetings for a chunk of time, I'll go to my local coffee shop and I'll do work there just so I can feel immersed in that human connection. That's really important for me.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so this was pure wisdom, mindfulness, awareness, everything. S. Thank you so much, Jen.
Yeah, so great to talk with you, Angelique. This has been such a pleasure.
Empowerededucator.com. This is where you have free resources for people who want to check out how you can help them.
Yes.
And the tech talk's going to be online at some point. So if you follow Jen on social media, you'll see, like, even me, I'm not an educator, but my mom, that's who she was. And if she could understand English enough to understand all the nuance of your speech, I think she would be like loving it too. So that's how I listen to you. Like, I know you, so I was listening for you, but also trying to, like, what an educator feels, and I was trying to listen through my mom's heart. Yeah, so
that's very I received that. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you so much. And if you're watching the replay and there are some nuggets that really like boom, we want to know in the comments. And then reach out to Jen if you need, and if you can find her, let me know and I'll direct you to Jen. Thank you, Jen. Anything you want to add that I forgot to ask that I should have asked?
Oh, no, just breathe and enjoy. Find your joy today. That's it.
That's a good way to end. So I'm going to end the broadcast. Stay with me. Thank you, everybody. Ciao, ciao.